Chapter 11. Some Things Shouldn't Be Said. Killa hasn't heard from PFunk in a couple of days, and although they talked about Linda, he still feels there's an outside chance that PFunk might actually be sleeping with her. While chilling at his crib, the phone rings. Yo, boss, the chick you was asking about? She just pulled up to your boy's crib. All right, peace. The youngster is happy he called Killa first. He'll get the extra $100. Killa arrives at his cousin's house, Sue, who lives across the street from PFunk. Mrs. Davis finally gets tired of the cat and mouse games with the private investigator and her husband. She ties her hair into a ponytail, which always makes her appear to be in her 20s, borrows Linda's car, and heads towards PFunk's house. She's thought of this before, but was reluctant. Now she's got to have him. As she's driving over, she thinks about calling him and asking him to meet her at the condo instead. That thought quickly leaves her mind. She has to have him now. She's throbbing, beating like a track star's heart, and is getting wet, just imagining him hitting it from the back, the side, and on top. She almost swerves off the road as she pretends she's riding his John. P-Funk is glad Mrs. Davis finally came over. Truth is, she could really fuck, and none of his other chicks get into it like she does. He jacks off because he doesn't want to come fast. He wants to beat it up for hours. After several hours of nonstop, all-out love-making, they're exhausted. Mrs. Davis knows she can't stay and kisses her baby everywhere before she leaves. Meet me at the condo tomorrow for another workout are the only words that departs her lips before the door closes. She has no idea what's waiting on the other side. She really has no idea. Killa has practically set up reconnaissance at Sue's house. He sucks down Heineken after Heineken, waiting to catch Linda leaving P-Funk's house. I knew that dude was lying, fake-ass joker, Killa says in a whisper. He's hot. He isn't sure whether he should just bust in and catch him in the act or just wait. He decides to make a call. Mr. Davis, Dad, I finally got her, he excitedly says. Got who, son? Mr. Davis asks. Killa explains how one of his workers spotted Linda as she pulled up in her car. How she has been in the house with P-Funk for the last 3 hours. Mr. Davis tells Killa to calm down and not do anything irrational. He instructs him to just observe, and they'll get together later to decide on what to do. As Mr. Davis is talking, Linda walks in. Hey, Daddy, she says while kissing him on the cheek. Baby, I'll be off the phone in a minute, Mr. Davis tells her while holding his hand over the mouthpiece. Killa hears a female voice in the background, and when Mr. Davis gets back on the phone, he says, Tell Mrs. Davis I said hello and that I finally busted her daughter. Kevin, I think you got the wrong person. Linda just walked in the door, responds Mr. Davis. Killa insists that he can't be wrong. He's looking at her license plates. Hot girl. Confusion and uncertainty cannot explain the next event. As Killa protests to Mr. Davis, he sees an older version of Linda, putting her key into the purple Lexus. All he could say is, damn, as he hangs the phone up. Perplexed as to what to say to Mr. Davis, he's staring at Mrs. Davis. And finally, everything comes together. Later that evening, while at dinner, Killa tells Linda about the events of the day. He goes through the episode detail by detail. Linda acts surprised, but listens intently. Killa's next comment breaks her heart. So you and your mother are messing with him, huh? He asks. With tears forming in her eyes from his insult, she tells him that she has never slept with Paul. Kevin, I'm tired of this shit. This shit is insane. I cherish you. I do right by you. I'm loyal. I'm honest. And I'm respectful to you. Why you keep accusing me and degrading me with this BS? I don't know what kind of women you're used to dealing with, but I'm not that type. You see who's driving my car? Yet still you want to accuse me of some treacherous stuff like that. If you want me to mess with him, I will. She tells him this as tears continue to roll, but even more so with thoughts that she might actually get with PFunk. Killa knows from her reaction that he has gotten her in her feelings, but now he doesn't care. He wants to know what in the world is going on with Mrs. Davis and PFunk. He has his boys remain on alert, keeping watch on PFunk's crib. He has to figure this shit out. He has no idea that he's driving his woman to another man. As if PFunk didn't already have enough coochie on his plate. The worst thing you can do to a chick is plant something in her head. Whether it's positive or negative, it'll stick. Once you stimulate her interest in the thing, 9 times out of 10, she's going to inquire about it. Search it out, accept it, believe it, cherish it, or do it. This is why department stores are so rich. Why telephone companies make trillions. Why psychologists are so in demand, and why diamonds are still their best friend. They need material possessions to feel worthy. They need psychs to straighten out all the negative BS that they've been made to accept. They need diamonds to feel cherished and goddess-like. However, all these things are second to some good work. Lovemaking is law, and if Killa would have knew this law, the next events in his life would have been utopian instead of draconian. After a sleepless night, Linda wakes up with the same thoughts she has dreamed about. Paul Ford. Killa's insistence that she's messing with PFunk now triggers her imagination even more. That afternoon, she calls PFunk. Their conversation is about life in general. They talk about cases she's prosecuting and about Killa's infatuation with them so-called screwing. In fact, their conversation is going so well, she decides to invite him to lunch the next day. PFunk is against such an idea because of everything that's going on, but he reluctantly agrees. He hopes that maybe Killa will come along, and they can straighten all this shit out once and for all. Needless to say, while drinking a daiquiri at Copeland's, Linda walks in, without Killa, looking and smelling like Halle Berry in Paris. Damn! He knew trouble was brewing. During lunch, he maintains his composure and respect for his friendship with Killa. They have gotten over many bumps and bruises in their lives, and he's sure they'll make it through all of this as well. He's so certain that he and his main man can remain friends that he intentionally bypasses all the flirting Linda's doing. This only irritates her and makes her advances more conspicuous and aggressive. After Linda kisses him on the cheek, it's then that he realizes this is more serious than he initially thought. Later that night, Linda doesn't notice the youngsters hanging out front as she pulls up and parks. While she's exiting her car in a long rainbow-colored Louis Vuitton trench coat, the youngster wonders what's going on. It's summertime. Chubby, the young fat one, he runs to call Killa. He needs the $100. PFunk is shocked when he opens his front door. No one ever comes by unannounced, and he actually thinks it's the cable man because the cable is out. Linda walks in like she owns the place. So, this is where you've been macking my mom and Remy, huh? She asks with a lascivious grin on her face. She sits on the sofa and crosses her legs. Well, aren't you going to offer me something to drink? She asks PFunk. He goes to the kitchen to get her a drink. He only has 2 thoughts on his mind. 1, I ain't screwing her. And 2, what if Killa shows up? After drinking the glass of wine in one swallow, she looks him in the eyes while unbuttoning her coat. Paul, make love to me. You know you want to, and I need you to make me feel good, she says as she starts rubbing the tip of her breast. Panic sets in on PFunk. Damn, she has a beautiful body, is all he can think while approaching her. Linda, please don't do this. Killa and I are friends. I love him like a brother, and I respect you too much. Even though you look good, I couldn't do my peoples like that, is all he says, killing any thoughts he has of getting with her. Linda is hurt from being rejected. She has her mind set on screwing the mess out of him. She's so upset when leaving, she doesn't even notice Killa following her. This situation has gone beyond the limits of anger management. Killa's so caught up in his own insecurity that he's going to commit an even uglier act than hating the game. He's going to hate the players. Rule number 1. Never let a chick pull you off your square. If a chick want to dance, play her song. If it's only for one night, then play that song. But when a chick doesn't have your best interests at heart, leave her alone. It'll save time, money, and headaches. Linda doesn't pay any attention to the steady headlights behind her until she pulls in her garage. Killa has his key in hand, so he beats her inside the house and is waiting when she walks in. Anger has been building up in him since the drive from PFunk's. It all comes to a head. "What is up, Linda? And don't lie to me," he asks as he reaches out to grab her, calmly and coldly. She steps away, but not in time that he doesn't notice what she has on. Underneath the coat is a black lace G-string he brought her from Vicky's. He knows this from the diamonds he had the seamstress sew across the top and on the side of the crotch. He kicks the garage door and damn near knocks it off its hinges. He stomps at the house, but not before telling her, "Don't worry, your sweetheart will be dead soon." Throughout the wee hours of the morning, Killa calls PFunk over and over. Each time he disguises his voice saying, "Watch your back, motherfucker. You're dead. Son of a bitch. Say your prayers." This is his only way to relieve this anger. The only thing that'll make him happy is PFunk's head on the mantle. "I can't believe this nigga. I gave this funky ass nigga everything and anything that he asked for. This nigga been like a big brother since I met him. And this nigga gonna play me to the left. Screw my chick, the one I plan to have kids with, spend my life with, grow old with. I'm gonna kill this nigga. I swear." All that shit he said about his pop taught him loyalty, respect, and honor. About not messing with another man's wife or betraying the trust. Yeah. I'm gonna get that nigga glasses. Yeah, 2 to the back of the head. Killa menacingly states to himself. He giggles to himself as he thinks that he'll place PFunk's head next to the deer he shot last year while hunting with Mr. Davis. He finally has a plan. Meanwhile, he continues to harass PFunk. The phone calls come every hour on the hour. PFunk has no idea who's calling, but his street intuition kicks in. After each call, he peeks out the window. All he sees are the same kids, and occasionally his neighbor Sue talking with the youngsters. He lays low for a few days, following his instincts. Mrs. Davis calls him occasionally, and he plays sick, not wanting to be around anyone until the phone calls stop. He speaks to Remy a couple of times, giving her the same excuse. However, each time Linda's number shows up on his caller ID, he doesn't answer. If only he knew. Uwe Beauticians is booming. Businesses coming from all around the various parishes. In fact, they now have customers coming from Baton Rouge and Lafayette. Queen Tracy keeps all the women straight, and all PFunk's money is being sent to his offshore account. The city surprises them with an unannounced inspection. The only mark they receive is a hair washer infraction for not having a certificate. PFunk decides he has to get out of the house. He can no longer stand the walls. It starts to remind him of prison. As he walks towards the Cayenne, he feels a chill run through him. Despite it being over 75 degrees, he looks behind himself and relaxes as he recognizes 2 of the youngsters that routinely hang out on the corner. He cranks up the ignition and feels the coolness of the air conditioning. As he plays Way of Life by Lil Wayne, he starts to pull off. Linda is deeply concerned for PFunk. She's been trying to tell Killa that nothing happened, but he won't believe her. She tries, begging, crying, etc., but she dare not go by PFunk's house with those little spy watches hanging over the corner. She can't understand why PFunk is not answering his phone, only that she needs to talk to him. She has to tell him to watch his back. Killa wants him dead, and that's the least she can do. She picks up the phone and tries again. PFunk jumps as the kids behind him start shooting at his SUV. As he turns to look at them, he sees two more of the youngsters running towards the vehicle from across the street. He's now glad that he took the advice of his salesman, Greg Green. The bullets continue to hit the glass, but the bulletproof reinforcement does the trick. He speeds away from this highly pissed, but glad that he purchased that option. Good going, Greg. I owe that nigga, he thinks. He drives straight to the condo, forgetting all the other errands he has to run. He calls Mrs. Davis on her private line. I need to see you at the condo now, is all he says before hanging up. P-Funk's tone has excited Mrs. Davis. It's been almost a week, and she's screaming for his loving. She runs out of her office telling her secretary, I've got an emergency to attend to. The emergency is the fire that needs to be extinguished by a certain fireman, Paul Ford. P-Funk lays across the bed drinking a Heineken. In his younger days, he would be nervous. However, now he can only think about is getting even. Someone has to pay for this. Mrs. Davis is doing well above the speed limit. She makes it from St. Charles to Slidell in only 15 minutes. Her desire turns to fear as the garage is raised. P-Funk's SUV has at least 20 bullet marks in both doors. A sudden fear of loss enters her mind. She fumbles with her keys before finally getting the door open. She runs inside, searches for blood, hoping that P-Funk is still alive. When she walks into the bedroom, all she can do is cry. Her young stud is still in one piece. I was so scared. Are you okay, baby? She asks with tears running down her cheeks. He assures her that he's okay, but angry about the whole incident. He still doesn't have the slightest idea of what's going on. Mrs. Davis calls Linda and tells her to come to the condo immediately. Meanwhile, Killa makes sure to enlighten Mr. Davis on what's going on. He explains what took place the day he hung up the phone on him. Mr. Davis is too shocked to speak. It's all true, Killa says. Albert doesn't want to believe him, but he knows it's true as well. He felt it. They get together later that evening. After finding out P-Funk has gotten away, they're thinking about hiring a professional to do the job properly, as they can't afford to be implicated in any form whatsoever. Killa knows that if P-Funk finds out that they have anything to do with trying to get him boxed, they'll have hell to pay, and they'll pay in blood if it's up to P-Funk. They decide it's best that they don't mention anything to Dorothy or Linda. When Linda arrives at the condo, her mother greets her at the door. She takes Linda to the garage and shows her P-Funk's ride. Linda starts crying and tells them both the entire story. She's in agony that P-Funk didn't answer her calls. Then none of this would have happened. After a few hours, they come up with a plan. Mrs. Davis gets two 10mm handguns from one of her old clients. He owes her a favor for getting him off a drug possession case. Then she calls her friend James, the general manager at Lamarck Dodge. She has him do an under-the-table deal, trading the Cayenne for a black Viper, reinforced with bulletproof and non-visual tint. With wheels and a safe place to stay, the plan is in full effect. News starts to spread around town, and it isn't long before Ashanti and her crew know that Killa wants to kill P-Funk. Of course, they will do anything to keep that from happening, and even though they're all good friends, they're devoted to Paul first. P-Funk gave them his new cell phone number, and they keep him abreast on what's happening in the hood. They also tell him that the youngsters by his house all work for Killa. In fact, the girl across the street, I think her name's Sue or something with an S, that's his cousin, Cedra tells him. It's time for the next phase of the plan. As he rides through his old hood, no one recognizes him in the blacked-out Viper. He had told Mrs. Davis of his plans to seduce Ned, his neighbor from the hood. He needs her eyes and ears. Mrs. Davis is cool with that, and the plan is rolling even better. Mrs. Davis and Linda both check on him at the condo on a regular basis. Countless times he has to turn Linda away. It is harder each time. However, in times of war, discipline must rule. After getting his final plans in motion, PFunk rents a condo on the beach in Mississippi. He wants to spend the week with Remy before going into the final stage. As he drives to Mississippi, he thinks to himself, I can never have one woman or fall in love, putting my trust totally in her. Ashanti had taught him well.